I'm very pleased to introduce you to Katie Maloney and Samantha Maygard.
Yeah. Ooh, clicker, a clicker. Hey guys, can you hear me? Oh yes, you can. I don't know if we should be honored or not that we're getting you after lunch when you probably want to take a nap. I won't take it personally if I see some eyes shutting. Yeah, so I'm Katie Maloney. I'm Senior Director of Internal Communications for Jefferson.
And I am Sam Maygard. I'm the lead user experience designer within digital technologies at Jefferson.
So you guys are probably like, well, who's Jefferson? I've never heard of them before. If you're from the Philadelphia, New Jersey region, Eastern region, and PA, it is three distinct enterprise business units. We have a healthcare system of 31 hospitals, 700 sites of care. We have a national doctoral research university and a health insurance arm. Complex doesn't even really describe what we are. And I think we are living in this age of, like, if you're not swallowing up companies, you will be swallowed up. So you want to be in a position to be able to help direct your company with where they need to go with their intranet. And I think you guys have probably heard a lot of themes that you're going to see represented here in our presentation. But we're going to give you sort of the blueprint, the practical steps. Okay, so like that's great, but how do we actually make it work? And the thing that was really transformative for us. And you're going to hear me say transformation a lot. And I think our relationship, her being in the IT world and me being in communications, is really a reflection of where we all need to be, right? You have to create the synergies. This is not an internal comms problem. It is not an IT problem. It's not an HR problem. You got to get everybody on board. So we'll kind of talk about the change management program for it. The thing that happened with us was we were a hot mess, and we knew it. Like, the communicators knew it. We knew we were working on like so many we had all these different systems. We never did the hard work of integration operationally. So we were all working in parallel. Then what happens? COVID happens, and it just amplifies all your vulnerabilities, all your gaps, right? But in a way, it became a silver lining for us, because what it allowed us to do was we had sort of the inertia to go to leadership, which, by the way, was also in turnover. Some of you know leadership and turnover is always a fun thing. And having to say, we need something better. We need a better solution. But, you know, as it wasn't so much a tactic, it was like a new way of thinking and a new way of shifting minds.
And now that we kind of understand the problem, we can kind of understand where to make this case study of like a single digital entry point. So where we got started was really talking to our diverse user groups, and we reached out to probably over 500 plus participants in these focus groups, and we narrowed down to 7 personas. And that was anywhere from our clinicians to our support staff, all the way to our corporate employees. So to make up this, we needed to really understand their complex needs, talking to the users, understanding what they expected in their outcomes and pain points. And from that, we also spoke to our executive team. So we had 31 leaders across cross-functioning teams, and it was a lot, with all different ideas of what they thought that the single digital entry point was going to be, but we really needed to kind of hone into what the user wanted. So that's what these focus groups were really for, to kind of where do you begin with the information. So from that, we kind of heard from the users what they expected. So they wanted a single entry point where they could kind of hear the communications that were coming in from all over the organizations. As you heard, 31 hospitals. That's a lot of communications going out, so we needed to really have a single place where they can get their information. Having the information stay up to date, and knowing how can we automate it so I can focus back onto the patient care. And then along that, we heard the pain points. So can't find what we need, the information is difficult to find, things are not easily accessed. I think you guys have all heard this in your own experiences.
Can I just tell you a little example? So we talked about talking to executives and leaders, and this is also so critical to your change management plan to get the buy-in, right? But what cracked me up is our lead physician executive. So this is the guy that's worried about onboarding stuff, getting his physicians, like knowing what they need, how they handle electronic medical records, all that. When we asked him what his biggest pain point was for his teams, finding our paychecks. I mean, it like blew our mind. It was so foundational. And so that really drove, I mean, having all that critical background and stuff, something as simple as that really just made the case for us,
Yeah.
you know.
Give me what I want, my paycheck.
So, okay, so, you know, you go through the effort of like talking to all those people, and we know what they want. But now we have to use that data to help basically lead our leaders, those that have the purse strings, right, at the end of the day, to make a buy-in for this. What was the greatest, I would say, galvanizing point to get across is we just kept hearing there's so much work to allow them to do the work to find the things that they need. They're not being productive, and I think J&J might have mentioned that in their presentation. Nothing goes over better with an executive leader other than like they could be doing more for you. They could be making more, they could be doing whatever the thing is, right? So making that case and building it around that really helped position us. And so we also unified around a vision statement of simple, efficient, and consistent. That is what it was about, because so much of what we had done up until that point was redundancy, and it was broken, and it was leading people down bad paths, down to things that were outdated. I think everybody can also relate to, we definitely came from the homegrown intranet world, where it was just one giant PDF farm, right? Lots of links that went to stuff that was outdated.
And broken links.
Broken links in many cases. Error 404, like
Yes.
over and over again. So part of our plan was also to set something up where we can't do the dump and run strategy anymore. It can't be like, oh, I posted it there and we're done. And it was so important for us to create a truly consumer grade experience. But again, you know, this is work. We're not lying here. We know it's work. We named it one.jefferson.edu because we wanted to reinforce that this was the gateway. You guys are going to interact, like, you know, with these systems, they're going to interact with different applications and stuff. So we know we're not taking the place of all of them, but we know that this is your starting point. And to go back to, I think, what others have said today in the sessions, it's what is your outcome? It's not the tactic, right? It's not just the thing, it's how you want your users to feel. That lens of empathy will just keep coming through. So Sam, oh, no, I lie. It's still me.
Yep.
Just briefly, there's a lot up here, and I'm going to be very honest with you and candid. This is a big team. A lot of them are also consultants, but on the intern, because I can't do this. So Sam used to love saying, like, I was able to dedicate time to this. I'm like, I'm internal comms for a whole organization. I don't have time to dedicate to the intranet, right? Like, I don't. But what we did do is put in a series of, I'm not going to go through all of it, but basically it's so important. This is change management 101. If you guys know it, this is it in real life. You have executive sponsors that you keep updated, you get their buy-in, you're talking to them, you're meeting with them, because they're your voice when the finance people are saying, I don't think we have money and capital for this, right? So you got to keep them in the loop. We had a leadership team which included me and some of Sam's leadership helping make decisions around certain things. And then we really had a core team. They did the day-to-day, moving and migrating the content. But because we also didn't want to lose anybody along the way and say, oh, I didn't know, right? We had an advisory board from all across, all those different types of roles across the organization. They weren't providing governance, but they were advising us when we had questions, because we're not the subject matter experts. And then they had a little bit of stake in this, and we used them as our like unofficial change network, okay? Because we would meet with them monthly, and then we'd say, okay, go out and proclaim the good news to everybody else with what's going on.
Be your champions and kind of encourage what we're doing in the organization, because they're going to be the ones that are talking to their direct reports and their team members to kind of spread the word.
Yeah, and they were really great. And sometimes I would call them out when they didn't show up to a meeting. They're like, you missed that. We also gave them slides too, to be like, here, we help them. You don't just leave them hanging. We gave them materials at the end of every presentation that they could bring back to their teams. So what does this actually look like in real life? So as a communicator, like how you build it out, I was very much, I'm a convert, let me just say this. Very much a person of, well, we don't have it all figured out. I need everything, all the details accurate. And our organization isn't standardized yet, and like, how are we going to do this? And it was like our friends, our IT friends said, well, welcome to the real world. The agile process is a real thing, and you need to iterate, innovate, and scale. So basically start with something that can give you a lot of momentum and you can get a lot of the buy-in. So we did a minimum viable product. So what is the thing that hits everybody? What are the certain areas that we can touch on? And then we'll start there. And then we'll continue to move through topics and different intranets that need to be migrated, and that's sort of how we stack things. So we started with employee resources, touched on HR, IS&T, leadership comms, started there. We didn't boil the ocean. That is so key, and it allows you the opportunity to flex, too, as you're moving through it. And then we've just been building since then, actually, and going through it. Sam's actually going to talk to you a little bit more about, how do you do in the actual building of the content?
So what you're looking at is really just an evolution of where we got to. We went through many trials and errors to get to this point. So I'm really just going to cover up some of the highlights from this and kind of take this as a frame, like in guide work, to kind of go through as you're working with your subject matter experts to kind of address their information in the current state. So it's really kind of taking a look at the information that they have. So can we keep it? Does it need to be updated? Can we consolidate? Is there different hospitals that we can work together to form into one singular source, or can we remove it? And we love that, because what we were really trying to do is remove the unused and the clutter, because that ultimately is what's just going to hurt in your search experience and not get users to where they need to go when they're key terms and keywords. And if they are searching for a specific thing, you don't want old documents and old policies coming up and cluttering your experience. So through that, we were able to start maintaining trust, because we were putting forward the most updated document and really coming back to that expected outcome that we heard in the focus groups, that I want to hear what's the relevant, the new, and the updated information. So content strategy questionnaires is really where we got to dive deep with those subject matter experts and the content owners, because we got to hear the business goals, the complex needs. What are your users? What is the actual information that you own? And then from there, we were able to create a site outline and do tree testing. So that's one of a usability testing methods that you can do to kind of test your site outline.
Well, it makes me think too, now that we've just heard about AI and as a native thing within Unily, think about how you can compress some of these steps that you couldn't do before. Like, again, I'm just like the naysayer sometimes as internal comms, like, oh my God, this has so many steps, right? You go into panic mode. But when you hear things like site outline and like, okay, it's not going to take Sam whatever long next time, because there's going to be an AI component. You're looking about compression of time that's bringing you like years back to your life, right? So it's really exciting, and it is all about the loop that they create and the feedback and stuff.
And then also through the discovery is kind of uncovering those keywords, the topic tags, those user-friendly topic tags to kind of reinforce your news articles and your events that you're posting within your platform. And then my favorite part is the mock-ups and making sure that it's designed in a cohesive way that users can kind of navigate through the whole experience, because it really should be one thing that you're looking through and to kind of match the brand across the page. And then the last thing I was going to say was feedback. Going to your users and listening to them, because that's the only place that you're going to, in surveys or in-person sessions, to have them to have a safe space to say, this is working or this isn't. And then next, we're going to kind of talk into some users think differently. You have users who really love to browse, and you have other users who really love to search. And that's where those keywords came into place, and talking to our leaders, which I'm sorry, you are not the audience. Your users are your audience. So any leaders out there, make sure you are still coming back to that user testing and really hearing what they need. And that really just comes back to the findability aspect of this is a major pain point that we're having, and giving them different avenues of how they can navigate through the experience is what's going to please them at the end of the day, because they can get to their information the way they know best. And we were unique in a way where when we went through those strategy work sessions was coming up with a topical approach and coming up with the accessibility, the content writing, and understanding labels that worked for our users. So it's not the departmental jargon and the labels that you think are structured. So let's just say you take telehealth. We know that's, within like the medical services section, but how users reference that information, how they want to find it, is patient services or shared services. So we really needed to think about how are users referring to these labels in conversation with their colleagues and not just, I fit underneath the medical services department, and because that's not how people are searching.
Let me just interject. That is so key for if you're a communicator, you know what that's like, because they're like, well, I am health equity. I'm community impact. Like nobody knows. Nobody knows the difference between HR, payroll. They just know that it's all a service that falls into sort of the same bucket a lot of the time. And that's where we really pivoted and I think made a difference to help. That was a huge win for our part.
And it was a mind shift change for our organization leaders because they really wanted to say, well, this is our organization structure. That's how our NAV should be structured. And that wasn't necessarily the case because that's not how users are engaging with the information that's on your intranet. So still me.
Wait, what happened to our, hold on, we're missing, did I lose it? Hold on, where's our, sorry guys, I might have popped through. I was looking for, we're missing something.
Nope, go forward. We might be out of order.
That's okay.
That's okay. We can go back.
Yes.
Sorry,
we're missing
you just
some
saw all our
slides.
slides.
We're missing some slides. It's okay. It's all good.
So essentially what we did as kind of what you've heard from the other pillars and sessions in the at Unite was this governance model and creating a training center that is really for the content owners who need to edit the information. So what you would see here is essentially our content management system for those who are trying to maintain the information. So we have a writing content, we have branding and style guidelines, and how to build the information. So it's essentially a centralized management for people to use the resources that are editing on the back end. So the writing content is really made up of our voice and our clarity and making sure that we're using accessible terms and effective headlines. And then our branding is talking about consistency across colors and the brand templates and how you utilize that. And then the actual building of the content is let's just say your widgets that you have in your page layouts and your grid. It's important to keep that consistent throughout the entire experience because if you have one person in one department building a page, you want that same look and feel for this consistent, cohesive flow to another page. And Katie's going to talk about our writing content.
Well, and I think I'm not going to belabor it because I think most of us know, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like it's like you can't say that enough. It's very hard though for your content owners to get that, and that's where this writing style guide actually comes into play because they just want to drop the heavy on everybody. It's like you need to make it scannable, right? Like they don't have time, and sometimes it's the language you have to use with the content owners. People on the site do not have time. If you have to elevate the critical things that they have to look at a glance, what is that? And that helps them dial in a lot more. Even your hyperlinks and stuff, I know that I always got yelled at for writing click here. They're like, don't ever use click here, ever. I'm like, okay, understood. Make sure it's a descriptive link. So all those little things, though, build up to something awesome, but they have to have a reference point, right? So we have our style guide there and everything, and that really was foundational to helping them with the rest of the work.
And then retouching on that branding and style guidelines. So that's coming from your typography, your headlines, creating information that's going to have patterns across your experience. Because as readers are coming to their information. They're not reading, they are scanning. They want to see things in bite-sized information, digestible chunks. So in our branding, we create patterns that we want people to utilize, because how you scan information on one page should be kind of flowed into the next, because you're really kind of like, what are my quick links? What is my most used resources? And what is the extra additional resources when I have the extra time to do learning and development? And then this really just kind of speeds up the publishing process, because you've set a standard and guidelines for people to follow. And I wish we had, I don't know what happened, but I wish we had the slides. And then lastly, it's really just kind of the building of the content and making future-proof content as easy and clear and structured that you can, to kind of reuse across the platform. So if you have a new department coming in, like language services, and they look at a previous site like population health, and they say, that site was really working, can we do that for our department? So you kind of take this training center and say, we're going to help train you, and you're going to apply what we did in population health over into your new department. So that kind of alleviates that whole workflow of the brainstorm from the beginning, because we can say, we know that this section is working over here, and we can apply it for a similar area that you have with your users.
And I was going to say that actually builds momentum too, because we've had a lot of our anecdotal measures of success, or like departments that are already on there, like everyone's telling us they love our site. I'm like, thank you, go spread that around and let everybody know how awesome it is and why they want one of those too. Yes. So now it gets down to the nitty gritty. So we had all these folks that are like, we had some people love their intranets. Like when they were, before we migrated them, like loved them. Like I thought I was like committing a crime with some of these people. They were so married to them. And so we took a three-pronged approach. Again, very change management 101. Leading up to it, making sure leaders were in the know, everyone from soup to nuts. But let me tell you what you don't want to do. There was actually a version of taking an old intranet away, like maybe like before the COVID and stuff. And I'll never forget it. I got one day, a bunch of us got an email. Site is going away. You should save down your information. It's happening this date. What do you think happened? People went nuts. They went in revolt, right? That is not a good plan or a strategy. Nobody understood the why. Nobody understood, whatever. So, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen because it wasn't going to be effective. So when we went through our process, and you kind of saw some of the structure, sort of the change network that we created, we were very, deliberate about setting up pre-migration strategy and who we're talking to, having a top 10 survey to those who were going to be impacted, so they felt like they had a voice. So you're at this location, your intranet is going away. What are the top 10 things you use? Because we want that to inform what we're doing. And then we would go to the content owners and inventory and audit their work and say, what are the things that are important to you and need to stay from a business case? So you're blending both the end user and the business needs, right, together. And then I'm not gonna, we did a lot of going around. I think the telltale, or the biggest piece to take away for this, I felt like I could send emails, articles, storytelling, signs, the whole deal. Nothing was as effective as me showing up to somebody's staff meeting in front of a bunch of nurses who use the intranet every day, and getting in front of them and telling them, this is what it's going to look like. This is how I'm going to walk you through it. We have tip sheets to give you to help you. That was the most impactful way of having change happen, because they also felt like we cared about them too. Was it a pain to try to drive around and do all these things and schedule it? Yes, but the outcome was so worth it, honestly. And then, as we're, I think I'm one off here too. Okay. So, I think I kind of touched on all of it though with the 7. We can actually go to the next one. Sorry.
Great. So, like you heard earlier, this federated model. So what is that? What can you do with that? So it's really kind of creating this real-time experience that can be maintained by the subject matter expert. So it's not managed by a singular admin team. It's you training the different departments on how to own their information, feel empowered that they can make the changes. I can't stress you enough that in our previous process, you had a clinician who, I need to update this policy, it's out of date. I need to submit a ticket. That ticket needs to be triaged. It gets reviewed. Weeks later, it's finally updated, and that policy is now out of the date. So what we're finding is people can now, they know the information, they know how to update it themselves. They can just go into the site, make the change, and in real time, now their staff is like, wow, we just talked about this yesterday, and it's here live today. So
and just to add on to that too, I think like you're definitely going to get the people who are going to say, "Oh my gosh, you're giving me another task. I don't update an intranet. What are you doing to me?" The way you flip the script is you're like, "Listen, you probably send like 5 billion emails out right now, constantly sending updates. You get it right on this one source. As long as everybody has that link and they know how to search for it, it's always going to be updated. You're actually saving yourself time long term. So it's making sure it doesn't feel additive, but it is in a more efficient replacement to what they're doing."
So once you you understand what the design and the permissions that you have to do through the training center, we created an effective training. So our trainers then train the trainees, and they are able to know the information step by step. We have the training center is like a kind of like a guide, and I kind of like to say like I don't know how to cook. Well, if you can read a recipe and follow it, you can cook. And we also say in our trainings, if you can edit Word or PowerPoint, you can build a page. It's really an easy thing, and I think that just is more on the UX writing of your instructions and making things super clear, because if you don't have that and it's not really digestible for people to follow, you're going to get mistakes. So it's really just kind of reinforcing, empowering them. And like Katie said, we know that it's not your main job, but the benefits that you get from this is that you can edit in real time.
Yeah. So like that's all great, and like does it really work? I will still say we are somewhat toddlers in this space. So we launched, I guess, like 2 years ago. It was like the beginning of 2024 when it was the first that MVP launched, and we've been going through it. You know, stat-wise, it looks very impressive. Some of it is great because it's just driven by the fact that you have people whose intranets moved into it, so they don't have a choice but go to this. But I think, take away the stats, the things that really counted for us. We have, you know, on launch day, we actually set up like a command center so that when somebody was moving over, there were any issues, something wasn't there, we were at the ready. I can honestly tell you, on launch days, for every migration we've done, maybe a handful of tickets, maybe. And a lot of times it was like an access issue or something like that. And the really big one, the really good telltale sign, if for those of you who are in healthcare, there's usually a regulatory body, the Joint Commission, that comes through, and they want you to look at their intranet, and you need to find like where your, you know, where your hazards cleanup information is and stuff. We had a couple of those happen literally right after their launches.
A week after.
A week after one of them. No tickets. No tickets to the IT center saying we have a problem, we couldn't find something. That to me is telling me they're able to find exactly what they need in a timely fashion. We're bringing time back. That was the most transformative. And as we continue, we're just seeing month over month increases in some of our features. Like I mentioned, we're still rolling stuff out. We're really rudimentary. We're just trying to get the information where it needs to be and looking about how we can build on that, use kudos and stuff like that. I won't read these verbatim, but basically some of the quotes that we've heard from are those clinical people who need that in the moment. I don't have time to click 5 things through. I have to take care of patient. Let me find what I need. We've heard, I always say anecdotally through other meetings, because we have ears in all our meetings. I'm like, is anyone complaining about the intranet? They're like, no, they actually are talking and how much they love it. So I feel like we're really making inroads with all of that. And we have other departments, you know, like I said earlier, talking about how much they like other departments' sites and stuff.
So as we look at back and what we were successful, there's a couple things that we want to have you take key takeaways from. So if you keep to this process, you're going to be empathizing with your users, coming with a lens of humility and problem solving and understanding. You will get to a point where you build that trust and that buy-in, but it really takes the right team to kind of kickstart this and really make sure that you're putting the best practice and the governance in place to get to a point where then you can reflect on your information and say, what did we do right? What can we change and what can we make improvements on? And then follow through. So after you've heard from your users, making sure that you're going back out and doing that testing and those surveys and hearing from them months after the fact, years after the fact, and then making sure that you're keeping to your promises. So if your roadmap said we're going to get to, a better search experience, coming and making sure that you're engaging and communicating with your users that this is coming. We might not have gotten to it just yet, but it will be coming. So that's a great follow through to have. And then it's really just the early wins. So like as you're building the momentum and getting the buy-in from leadership, it's just kind of creating that credibility throughout your organization that's probably undergoing a lot of change.
And if I just leave you with one last thing too, it's like, again, there's never going to be the perfect time, guys, ever, to have the intranet. Your company's never going to be in the perfect state. I really feel like we were a catalyst for unification, that we created the stability that was lacking in our organization. We really became a buoy so people had something to hang on to, and now we're actually at a point where we're forcing organizational decisions as a result, because people are expecting to see things there and standardize, and they're not yet.
Yep.
So now we're able to use it and go back and use it as leverage with leadership and stuff. So yeah, and we look forward to leveraging so much more that's ahead. AI, it's going to be a fun journey for us.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Great session.
Thank
We have
you.
a few questions that have come in.
Great.
So we will start. We have, what was your go-to people plan like around the launch, and how have you embedded the site in the employee journey? And that is from Amanda.
Go-to people. I think if we go back to sort of that advisory board and then who has the most stake in it, like especially the areas that we launched in the beginning, that MVP, because they had as much at stake in this, right? We really relied on them to help kind of carry the torch and the messaging throughout. And then in terms of the employee journey, it's funny, when I've been listening to all the sessions, we really have a need to embed it more in orientation and stuff. It's there now, but I think it's being more methodical about where we plan it. We know that different departments have started to bake it into what they do, but we sort of made it kind of a point to resource in all the other comms that we do. And I think switching that over and driving people to one has been a huge help.
Awesome. We have a question that has come in from Gabby. Are there any governance best practices you can share that you wish you would have known?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it's creating material that people want to read so they understand what you're showcasing. So what we heard earlier is like, give them what they want, the podcasts, the videos. It's also kind of creating a framework that you're going to get buy-in in, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of like something that related to that, because I think there's what everybody thinks they want and what actually is effective, I think is what you're getting at and stuff, and making sure everyone's on board. So probably, just helping manage expectations. I don't know if it's in the actual governance piece as much as the conversations you're having with people and like level setting with them. And
if so, Gabby, wherever you are you asking more for the front-end governance or the back-end governance? Just so we can, yes,
Yeah.
hi.
Back-end.
Back-end.
So
Yes.
from previous sessions, we've learned that CPS, for example, we have 700 plus content.
Yes.
And we don't have that. It's really just about like 5.
Okay.
CMS, different owners, different programs. So I don't know if you can share a little bit about your governance and how does that look like?
Yes, so we really focus on roles and responsibilities. So if you only have such a small team, it's really important to make sure that you know what's expected of like your leaders, who are your admins on your team, who are your publishers, who are your editors, who are the people that are going to go out to the training sessions to get people adopting this. And it's creating the best practices around like the writing, the style guides, the tone, the branding. It's really creating this just a guidance for them to follow, because I feel like if you don't have something like that in place, people are going to interpret, they're going to change, they're going to put their own spin on it. But if you have the like written documentation, is really going to help shape what your team is. And
Well, and I think that goes back to earlier definitions. Like, how do you define a publisher versus an editor? Because that's where I think we had to kind of we had to take a step back and refine a lot of that, because we thought we had it right, and then people were still confused. So being thoughtful and deliberate about that is really critical.
Great. Next, we have from Elizabeth, how do you keep the content creators motivated to keep their sites up to date and engage with your content creator hub?
we find you and we reach out to you.
I'll come for you.
Yes.
There's an auditing process
Yes.
too. That's part of it that we're trying to bake in. I mean, I think it's twofold, right? There's the soft side of it, which is when they start seeing people pay attention and they're getting the feedback, right? Or like, I'll use the comms side of it. I can always say, hey, I went to your site and it's not updated and we need it for this, right? That's like a slight nudge. But then you can actually put the systems in place, the auditing, to ping them to be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think it's more also like showcasing what's available. So let's just say you were in the early adoption and we launched with your content, and we weren't thinking about like, oh, we had the news ropes and features that we can add to your page. I think as people start exploring and utilizing the intranet, they say, wow, I want that on my page. And then that's how we get you, we're finding you, to then update your information. But it really is essentially an audit, because and you can use features within Unily to do this type of automation, but it's also, I would say, whether you're a federated model or you have this admin team that's moderating, it's making sure that as those submissions come in, you're reviewing them with like a fine comb, and it's coming back to your brand and your guidelines to make sure it's consistent, and it's really just kind of full circle at that point. Of course.
All right. Next, we have from Abby. We have, what were the what's in it for me messages that resonated most with your teammates during pre-launch and promotion, especially for clinicians or teammates who may have used their intranet sparingly?
Yeah, that's actually a really good one. For us, that search feature was so critical because search didn't function all that well on the other intranets, or even like, so we basically said we're going to make it a lot faster for you to find what you need. And when we can actually demonstrate that, and remember I talked about interconnection between systems, it's not perfect. I'll be very transparent about that. It's not perfect, but our policies, people love policies. We had a separate policy system though, that they were also, the enterprise was migrating over to at the same time. I forgot to mention that. We went through major shifts like moving to Workday and moving to Policy Stat in the middle of building an intranet. ServiceNow, which caused all sorts of agita. But I think our ability to show folks how quickly they could get to something, they were like, oh, this works way better. That is what I think really helped them. And then on the non-clinical side, I would say, look how fast it is to find your paycheck. Look how fast it is to find the benefits. We know that everybody wants to sit there and read the CEO letter, okay? That's not because I always joke, right? Like, we're selling Eagles, if we are giving away free Eagles tickets, that will get 100 billion more views than a letter from the CEO. It's just reality, right? So I think it was making sure that we made sure they understood that they could get to the things that mattered to them.
Awesome. Next, I think we have one that will resonate with most, but when you're going through the mergers and acquisitions, how do you manage access and collaboration for those external partners and vendors through dedicated portals while maintaining strong security controls to protect your internal intranet environment and sensitive company data?
Well, that was deep
Yeah.
and technical. So, well, it's two things, and Sam, you can feel free to jump in as well. Like, I think what was happening was more our team, trying to get access to their sites so we could see, because we had to do the audit and inventory it and stuff. It wasn't so much them coming in because as they were joining our group, you have to remember, by this point, like, except for our latest one, a lot of it, we had merged them, but our migrations, they were already part of the company, but the intranets were in existence and just living there. So it wasn't a matter for most of them about access. What was an issue was an access going out to the old intranets to see what they had. And that was just really having the IT leads at the enterprise or corporate level work with the local level and sort of like give them the right nudge, because it would take a while. We had to be on them and say, no, this is critical. We're trying to meet deadlines.
And one thing I think we've done as an organizational shift is more transparency across the org and really what people what's coming and those different integrations that will be happening. And I think knowing and exposing what changes to come, more leaders were connecting and more leaders were talking to one another so that they knew, oh, if you're going to start working on ServiceNow, you need to connect with these people. So it's a communications gap. And I think it's really having your leaders come together. I think sometimes leaders work within their own silos, and that might not be the case for all your companies. You might be doing it better than us, but sometimes some of our leaders were really just operating within their own groups, and I think it started to take hold when we were uncovering some of these gaps to say, hey, we need to talk because what you're doing on your side is not operational to what we're trying to achieve.
Well, and I will say, just to piggyback too, one other comment is we're in the middle. We just finished up a merger last year. All right, I'm not going to call it a merger anymore. They're all acquisitions, okay? I'll just say that. I'm not allowed to say that out loud, outside of here, but that's okay. We did have we have a group who we did slow walk in their leadership. So we started with the VP level, and they have their own little portal within one. And so we did work with their leaders needed to know what was going on and be connected. So I would say we took a tiny baby step of getting them provisioned in accounts. And I'm not going to lie, that got wonky too, because things kept changing and data syncs don't work exactly. So you kind of have to work your way through it and find the right people within the teams to help you, support you. And then that also added to the word of mouth that Sam was talking about.
Awesome. We might have time for one more, possibly, I think. So, how do you know how much governance to give your site owners?
I don't trust anybody, so this is a hard question for me.
If you didn't say it, I was going to say it. I think sometimes, at least for me from the user experience side, I want everything to be so consistent as possible, and I think maybe that's where I get a little overprotective of the information. But I think that's when you start building the adoption and you see people and they understand what you're trying to achieve, it really just kind of is. You start to become more as a group who's trying to level the whole organization, which is really nice to see after being so dysfunctional across all the different 10 intranets.
Well, I think like people, especially if this is not their day job, they want direction. So they want very clear direction on what to do. I think the more open-ended, I mean, you don't want to be so like, we had templates, right? They're confined to a certain type of templated area, so they're not able to make pages that are wonky. So you give them the structure. As long as they have the directions, they're pretty good about following it. Not everybody, we still have to go back, but
yeah.
For the most part.
There's some rogues out there, but
yeah.
Well, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with everybody your journey through the years of
Thank you,
a lot
guys.
of acquisitions.
Good luck to everybody.
yeah.
Just a reminder, up next from 2:30 to 3:15, we have 3 more sessions. One on our main stage, which is From Likes to Lasting Impact, Reinventing Enterprise Social with Pearson. In the Bluebird stage, we have From Idea to Innovation, inside Unilever's product development engine, or you can stay right here with me, and we have Creating and Maintaining Strong Governance with Estee Lauder Companies. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.